Chasing Ghosts. I feel like that's a very interesting title, but very fitting at the same time. So you might be asking yourself, what does chasing ghosts mean? Or what does chasing ghosts mean to me? So to me, chasing ghosts is holding on to the past. It's holding on to versions of you that you used to be, people that you used to interact with, you know? Could be, yeah, a past version of yourself, a past friend group, a past situationship, a past relationship. And why I say Chasing Ghosts is a very fitting title for this random rambling that is because those things aren't real anymore, which is an interesting thing because they were at a point in time, but in the here and now, they no longer cease to be real. And even how we remember them is skewed. For example, I don't think people, and I can only speak for myself, and I don't assume or position myself as somebody who has all the answers, but when you catch yourself, or when I catch myself in those states of mind where I'm reminiscing on, let's say, a past situationship, I rarely ever focus on the bad. All I remember is the highs. And that applies to everything in my life that I reminisce about, not just relationships or relationship dynamics, but looking back. I rarely look back and focus on the bad when I'm trying to feel something that I used to feel. And so, even that looking back and reminiscing isn't very honest because it's biased, because I'm only going to nitpick at the good. I don't care about the headaches, the stress, sleeplessness that came along with the situations that I'm thinking about. All I care about is the highs. And it kind of feels like a fix. It kind of feels like it actually feels like a fix because even when it comes to something like drugs, you go back for the high, you don't care about the crash. When you're feeling for that next hit, you go back for the high, even though you know the crash can be so detrimental to you. But we ignore it, and I ignore it, or people ignore it. I don't want to say we because maybe whoever is listening doesn't, but for people like me, it's very easy to ignore. So chasing ghosts, it feels like a crutch, or it feels like a burden, to put it in better words. And I can give an example. Maybe some people can relate, but in 2020 during COVID, when the whole world had locked down. I have never in my life been more consistent when it came to working out. And I mean, it was a daily devotion, Monday to Friday, 5 days a week, for around about 6, 7, 8 months. My diet was the cleanest it had ever been. I gave up sugar for a good year. And since then, I've always found myself trying to go back to that version of me in 2020, trying to chase that ghost of who I used to be, and simultaneously placing that ghost of myself on a pedestal and using it as a bar to measure my insufficiencies or inadequacies, at least the perceived ones. Because since then, it was a situation of if I work out 3 days a week instead of five, I look at myself and I say, why can't you go back to how you used to be? If I fuck around and drink 3 sodas, same thing. But in chasing that ghost through the perspective of tunnel vision, or chasing that ghost and focusing on the highs that version accomplished, I actively or passively or consciously or subconsciously ignore the fact that maybe that version of me was in an environment where it was a bit easier to do all that or to achieve all that he achieved. Again, it's total lockdown. There's nowhere else to be but your house. I wasn't 18 at the time, so going out and partying is out of the question. At least that's in my case. There's some people who there's some people who got into this partying life early. But the only thing I could do was sit in the house. And for reasons I might speak on later down the line in this podcast, quitting sugar felt like something that I needed to do for my future self. But see, with time, the environment changes, or it changed. We got out of COVID, and now suddenly I'm 18. And legally, I can do almost anything that before I couldn't do. It now becomes a situation where I could be out on a Wednesday night. I could drink on a Tuesday night. I could drink on a Thursday afternoon. And all these things are impactful because now you introduce things like hangovers. Now I'm slowly becoming lethargic. Now I'm slowly drinking sugar while I'm chasing. And the environment is slowly changing around me, even if ever so gradually. The environment is changing. So much so that it's not easy to notice in the immediate. And the danger of that becomes that you can't separate the ghost from the man in the mirror because the change happens so slowly. It was so interwoven into your life that alarm bells didn't go off. And so, how can you catch or how can you separate something that you're not even aware happened in the moment? So, chasing ghosts. I feel like I'm saying that like it's a motive, like I'm starting every stanza with chasing ghosts. But chasing ghosts. And it's not saying that, oh, I can't work out 5 days a week, or I can't cut out sugar from my life, or I can't stop XYZ, or I can't do XYZ. It's just saying that maybe the comparison or the approach I'm using to compare what I am doing now and what I used to do is the issue. And when I keep falling short from that benchmark, it dissuades me from trying again. But in all actuality, I've set a standard with a half baked picture. I've sought for the moon and the stars, and all I have to launch me is a jig or or some fireworks. The gap, the gap I've made is too wide and it's too unrealistic and it's too unforgiving because it doesn't allow me the grace to sit down and say, actually, maybe your catch. Look around and see the world around you. Things are massively different. And maybe in seeing that, the approach can change. And now I can say, okay, if I really want to work out 5 days a week and I still want to drink, maybe I'll drink on Fridays alone. There's no reason to drink on a Sunday night and wake up with a hangover throughout Monday, for example. Or if I know that when I drink, I tend to like to indulge in sugar, I can say maybe try not drinking. But the point is not to compare myself right now to that ghost without looking at the fact that where my 2 feet are at is not where my 2 feet were. And that's okay. And that's okay. And I feel like, at least for me, being aware of that slowly helps. It's not an easy road because, I mean, when you've been doing something for a long time, you know what they say, old habits die hard. But it at least allows you to walk towards something. You're no longer walking blind, so even if you stumble, you're no longer stumbling in the dark. You're stumbling on the path that you want to walk on. And I feel like that in and of itself is a great thing. So, with that, I think that's the conclusion of my second random ramblings, chasing ghosts. And I'll leave it off with a question you can ask yourself, you can ask somebody in your life, maybe your boyfriend, maybe your girlfriend, maybe your best friend, maybe your parents, maybe your siblings. You can choose not to ask anybody as well. But what ghosts are you chasing? And why do you keep chasing those ghosts?